I want to get to Elise Stefanik momentarily, but she was the star last night. The star, in fact, whenever I'm with Elise, she's the star. I mean, let's be honest. I was at the RNC in Milwaukee last year, and I know Trump was the star, but Elise, this is a rock star. This is a tremendous congresswoman, selfless. We know what she did, UN ambassador back to Congress, and now we're all hoping and praying she runs for governor. We'll talk to Elise coming up momentarily. I told you a couple times today how cool that event was last night. The Staten Island GOP, Scott LeBedo, my presenter, Nicole Maliotakis. What a great speech outlining all the amazing things Elise Stefanik has done. Really an unbelievable career, and it looks like it's just going to get better. I'm not going to make Elise commit to something on this show today. She's not ready yet. But she'll talk about that governor race. Antonio Delgado jumps in. He's Hochul's lieutenant governor. He hates her guts. Bottom line, he hates her. I hate her too. But Antonio jumps in. So let's get the whole lowdown on that, what happened in Colorado, and where we are in this country with anti-Semitism, with one of the most powerful politicians and a valued and beloved member of Congress, my friend Elise Stefanik. Elise, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, Sid. It was great to be with you last night at the Staten Island GOP event. What a huge energy, great turnout.
It really was great, and it was great being with you, too. I specifically enjoyed the little round table we did before, me, you, and Nicole, and it was great to see you and great to talk to you, and there's a lot going on. I guess we'll start with Boulder. You know, again, people that didn't know about you, you became a household name. I think you said a billion people watched you take apart the presidents at Harvard, Pennsylvania, MIT, Northwestern, Haverford, all these schools along the way. But here we are again, still, another anti-Semitic attack in another state here in the United States. And I got to tell you, Elise, as a Jewish guy with a big mouth in New York City, I walk around these streets every day with eyes behind my head. And I should, right?
It is a disgrace what has happened, and this is a result of the anti-Semitism that has been fueled and flamed and not addressed by the radical left. And now we have an illegal pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas terrorist on U.S. soil throwing Molotov cocktails at peaceful pro-Israel advocates who are advocating for the release of the remaining hostages. Think about this. This is on American soil. What do we know now? This illegal was allowed to stay here by Joe Biden. So policies have consequences, folks. We need to have a zero tolerance policy in this country when it comes to anti-Semitism or any violent targeting of any American. And this is why, one of the many reasons why I've been so strong and led the effort to combat anti-Semitism on our college campuses, because this is the future leaders, unfortunately, at these universities, and they've been brainwashed by pro-Hamas professors and coddled, frankly, to accept what is morally wrong. And if you go back to that committee hearing, Sid, it was really a watershed moment. It set off an earthquake where people, not just even within the higher ed community, but society at large, really opened their eyes to the scourge of anti-Semitism that is growing. And what is very, very sad and scary is New York City. If you look at the state of New York, there are more anti-Semitic crimes in New York City than any other place in the country. We need to have strong leadership at the city level, at the state level, to push back on this radical, pro-terrorist, dangerous violence that is not only existing on college campuses, but now you have it targeting seniors, including a Holocaust survivor in Boulder, Colorado.
Yeah, that was a very sad part of that story. And, of course, I was appointed not that long ago by up-ran President Trump to serve on the Holocaust Memorial Museum Council. So I take that Holocaust stuff very, very seriously. I will say this.
And I'm so glad the appointments were incredibly strong appointments. And Sid, one of the programs that I'm sure you're either already aware of or will learn now that you're on that board is I passed a bill, I co-led It was bipartisan, and it was called the Never Again Holocaust Education Act. This is before October 7th, and this is to provide grants from the Holocaust Museum to K-12 schools to make sure that students are taught the horrors of the Holocaust. So I have a very long policy record on leading on this issue. And, of course, this is before the bloodiest day for the Jewish people since the Holocaust on October 7th and all of the strong leadership since then. But, pay close attention because we need to do more of those types of programs.
100% education, very at the very top of our agenda, Elise. Your dear friend Siggy Flicker, she was also appointed. Teela Falik, a couple of very, very strong people. But before we get to the city and state level you talked about, because they both failed us. Eric Adams is a terrible mayor. He just woke up to figure out Jews are in trouble. And Kathy Hochul may be worse at the state level. But, these universities, you did an unbelievable job. You led the effort. You're the MVP. President Trump, he's done an amazing job. But these schools still don't care. Harvard is basically giving the middle finger to President Trump, doing what they want to do, and they won a court case last week, which really hurt. Columbia, at their commencement a couple of weeks ago, the stupid president was out there talking about Mahmoud Khalil as if he's some type of hero. So even with all the bludgeoning that's gone on, and great work by people like you and Trump, these universities, they still don't care.
They still don't get it, and President Trump is right for these executive actions he's taken. These schools had an opportunity to save themselves. They failed to do so, and it was important for President Trump to step in to defund. These schools are not entitled to U.S. taxpayer dollars. First of all, if you look at their endowments, and then they are funded by billions of U.S. taxpayer dollars, their values do not represent U.S. taxpayers across this country. It is very sad for me. Look, I went to Harvard. I was the first member of my immediate family to have the opportunity to graduate from college. It is unrecognizable to me what is happening at that college campus as well as other quote-unquote elite college campuses. This is about leadership, and it's multifaceted, Sid. They're taking foreign dollars, which is why I'm working so hard to expose the foreign donations that are anti-American on universities. They're increasingly admitting foreign students taking place of American students. There was a long expose on the number of communist Chinese students that are at Harvard. It's becoming the front university for the CCP. That's absurd. If you look at the number of foreign students at Columbia, that's a major problem as well. You have the moral rot of DEI, which at its core is anti-Semitic. And then you have the problem with tenure with professors when it's increasingly becoming groupthink and so radically progressive that it's moving away from actual academic excellence. We need to and there is an earthquake in higher ed. People are voting with their feet. You're seeing increases in enrollment and matriculation in schools down in Florida and Vanderbilt and elsewhere who are leaving these, Ivy League schools who have lost their way.
Yeah, well, my son to go to Florida, actually, and Vanderbilt, of course, is in Tennessee. It's a great school, and Texas also getting a lot of students
Texas,
now.
Emory, there's a number of students who are looking elsewhere, and there's much stronger moral leadership at these schools.
Much, much more. This is the smartest show in America. I go from one Harvard grad, Elise Stefanik. Your buddy in Congress, Randy Fine, is coming up in about 30 minutes. He also went to Harvard, so we lead the league in Harvard grads on Sid and Friends in the morning. But, you are that person, Elise. You become that person. Credit to you that everybody wants in every job. For example, I wanted Trump to pick you as his VP candidate. No disrespect to J.D. Vance. Nice guy. I think you would have been better. Then you're one of the strongest members of Congress, and you did what you did to all those university presidents, which will go down in history as one of the great couple of days politically in this country's history. Then President Trump wants you to be the ambassador to the UN, but in very selfless fashion. You go back to Congress. You've got a razor slim majority. So you go back, and now there's a lot of folks, including me, who want you to be governor. Can you do 4 jobs at once?
Well, I'm proud to wear a lot of hats, Sid, and really honored to have earned support and have lots of encouragement. And look, God has a plan. Things work out for a reason, and I'll tell you, it is proven to be the case that this slim House majority, 2 key votes passed by 1 vote. This one big beautiful bill, which is the cornerstone of President Trump's agenda, that passed by 1 vote. I needed to be there to cast that deciding vote. In addition, the budget, which unlocks that process to get to the big beautiful bill. Of course, that's the border security, energy independence, no tax on tips, keeping the tax cuts. I also was the deciding vote for that. So I am making sure that I stepped up and put America first, put New York first. And I'll tell you, voters across the state, they are looking for that type of leadership in New York State, someone who's going to put New York State first and is going to save our great state after decades of Democrat single-party rule and the decay that we have seen. So I am crisscrossing the state right now. As you heard in my speech last night on Staten Island, we are getting lots of encouragement, and I think what is most interesting in the last 24 hours is Kathy Hochul's hand-picked lieutenant governor just announced that he was primarying her. That is supposed to be her closest political ally. That is how much she has failed the state of New York. She is a feckless, failed leader and leads the New York Democrat Party that has brought us the crime crisis, the sanctuary cities crisis and those failed policies, the economic crisis, the fact that we're the highest tax state in the nation, the fact that we leave the nation in population exodus. So I'm always up for a fight. We need to save New York, and I'm taking a very strong look, and I'm going to make a decision in the coming months, Sid.
Oh, the next couple of months. Okay, so is it fair to assume, no pressure on you, Elise, that if you decide to do this, that maybe early in the fall?
We are going to run. If we run, Sid, I'm going to run to win. I do not run for second place. And if you look back to when I first ran for Congress in 2014, that was quite a long time ago. I'm the dean of the New York delegation, the longest-serving New York Republican member. We flipped a district. It was a district that was held by a Democrat. It's hard to remember because this is the North Country. It was a Democrat that only won by a point or two. It was one of the most hotly contested districts in the nation that Republicans didn't even win in 2010. And there were few like that in New York State. We flipped that district, won it by 20 points. What have we done since then? Democrats have spent more against me than any other Republican in New York State, and yet we have continued to rise up, outperform, winning independents and Democrats as well. So this gubernatorial race is not just about winning Republican voters. It's about winning independents and peeling off Democrat voters as well, and being able to build a grassroots organization as well as a war chest to take on the desperation of today's Democrat Party, which is totally rudderless, and Kathy Hochul is just a failed candidate who does not excite voters, even in her own Democrat Party, even her own lieutenant governor. So we are putting the pieces together. If we do this, this will be the most well-funded, the most well-organized statewide campaign since when we last won with George Pataki.
And don't forget George Pataki's lieutenant governor, Betsy McCoy. She was in attendance with us last night, at least on Staten Island. She has intimated she may run for governor. And then you've got two of my very, very close friends, Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman and your colleague and friend in Congress, Mike Lawler. Lawler especially, he's talking about running. I would rather you not go through a difficult primary. So my question is simple. If you decide to run, Elise, will there be a sit-down with Lawler, maybe Blakeman, I don't know, where you guys just kind of come together and say, Elise, you're our best shot, let's go?
Well, I have good relationships with all those names. I served with Mike Lawler. I helped lead the effort. I was one of the biggest advocates to have national investment in his race, and he will say that. I've known that for a long time. I've known him for a long time. Also know Bruce Blakeman. We are all in to make sure Bruce Blakeman wins the county executive race. He, of course, is on the ballot this November. I was so glad to see his strong leadership regarding Massapequa and the mascot issue. It was great to see Secretary of Education Linda McMahon with him. So we are all friends and colleagues, and we know the stakes are incredibly high. There's going to be an open line of communication in this process, and we are going to unify as Republicans because we have to. Look at what's happening among Democrats, whether it's the New York City mayor's race or statewide. They are divided. They are fighting amongst themselves. We need to put together a unified team. So we're going to have open conversations, and, you know, again, this shows that there's lots of talent in the Republican Party, and lots of people who understand that it is important to save our state. And people have to put New York first, just like I've put America in New York first during my withdrawal of this cabinet nomination position to step up for New York.
Did do that. On the way out, you're right about Antonio Delgado, the lieutenant governor who decides to primary Hochul because he can't stand her, and he knows New York is a mess. But I got to tell you, Elise, this Hochul, she's also like these universities. She's not afraid. You know, she told President Trump and Sean Duffy, hey, I'm leaving the cameras on. Sorry. And then she has a cockamamie excuse why it's working. Congestion pricing is not working. But she told Trump and Duffy, I'm leaving the cameras on. These wind turbines, right, out on Long Island, Nassau County, these lithium battery centers all over New York. She basically, like universities, she says to Trump and these people, F you. Gives him the middle finger. And Trump, he's a deal maker. He'll let her say what she's got to say until he gets what he wants. But she's become really difficult to work with.
Well, not only that, she's deeply out of touch with New Yorkers. So if Kathy Hochul is spending her little political capital that she has to advocate for congestion pricing, which is wildly unpopular and it's a tax on working New Yorkers, if she is spending her time with the president advocating for wind projects that no one supports in those regions, that shows how deeply out of touch she is. I have the strongest relationship with President Trump in the delegation. Obviously, I was the first one to endorse him in 2024. I led on his impeachment defense team, and I'm stepping up in the House and have an open line of communication. He is deeply focused on issues of New York. Look, he may live in Florida now, but he's a New Yorker at heart. He follows New York politics very, very closely. He's a frequent guest on your show. Sid, he's a friend of yours. Yep. So this is going to be a race where Trump moved New York more to the Republican direction than any other state in the country, if you look at 2024. He turned out historic vote in Queens and the Bronx, as well as doing that Madison Square Garden rally, which, as you remember, the media and the left and the political prognosticators smeared him for. It ended up being brilliant because he was able to surge New York turnout. We are going to need those Trump voters, and it needs to be a candidate who excites those voters and is a close ally of President Trump.
Last one. The last two governors promised us the same thing. And I'm talking about upstate New York, which is great because you're from there, right by Albany, okay? My mom lives south of you, but she's still in Monticello, White Lake, which is about 2 hours, I should say, north of New York City. And between Cuomo and Hochul, they promised us they were going to fix that upstate region, right? And how do you fix it, obviously? You unleash energy. We've got so much money under our own feet, which Trump talks about all the time. They've done none of that. These pipelines are still closed. I don't know what they've done, if anything at all, to improve upstate New York. But you know this, Elise. A lot of those neighboring towns where you reside and govern, they're a mess. They're a mess. How do you fix that part of this region?
It goes back to the economy. President Trump is exactly right. It's energy exploration. You go to parts of the southern tier, said you go across the border to Pennsylvania, small towns are booming, income is rising, and yet in the southern tier, there continues to be mass population exodus because we have a moratorium on fracking put into place by today's New York Democrat leaders led by Kathy Hochul. You have the highest tax state in the nation. You have the most bureaucratic red tape. So people who want to start a small business in New York State, which is the backbone of our upstate economy, it is crushing to get that done. The taxes are crushing. You have farms that are going out of business because the anti-agricultural policies put into place by Kathy Hochul and Democrats in Albany. So the economy is the key message in upstate New York. People understand that while President Trump's policies are working across the nation, we are getting crushed by failed leadership from Democrats in Albany who have governed like radicals who are also corrupt for years. Look at the budget. Look at this disaster of a budget, how fiscally irresponsible it is. It continues this trajectory of increasing taxes. It includes a $10 million taxpayer bailout for Tish James. It is a disgrace. We need to look at strong leadership to cut taxes, to slash the bureaucratic red tape, and actually put New Yorkers first and be a beacon for manufacturing, farms, small businesses, and investment.
It is a point that you made last night that our budget is actually more than Florida and Texas combined. That's ridiculous. Listen, whatever you do, I'm going to show my cards now. I'm a poker player, and I want you to run for governor. I know how important you are in Congress, and thank God you were there for this big, beautiful bill, but I want to sign a long-term contract, Elise, to stay in New York at this radio station, and I need you to fix this state. So I'm showing my hand. I want you to run, but whatever you do, you are a national treasure. You're terrific. You're great. I love you. Thank you for coming on this morning. Great seeing you last night, and keep up the great work.
Thank you, Sid. Always love coming on your show, and I'll be on more frequently.
I love that. Thank you. That made me excited. Thank you. There she is, folks, the amazing Congresswoman, and maybe, just maybe, the next governor of New York, my friend Elise Stefanik. She's going to be on more often. You know why? Because she's going to run for governor. And when you run for office, whether it's New York or New Jersey, you want to be on Sid and Friends in the morning.